But moving on now, 2022 has been a game changer for the mobile phone market in India, with Apple betting big on India. So why is the smartphone behemoth eyeing the Indian market, and how could this impact the company's exports? Let's take a look.
The shortest flight from Cupertino in California to Chennai takes about 24 hours and 20 minutes. But despite the long haul, many Apple executives are likely to want to take this flight, with industrial hubs outside of Chennai and Bangalore increasingly playing host to manufacturing iPhones. But before we look at the Apple story in particular, let's look at the broader smartphone manufacturing story here in India. Now, the PLI scheme for mobile phones was amongst the first PLI schemes to be approved and notified by the Indian government. It provided for incentives worth 4 to 6% on incremental sales, and the budget outlay for the incentives was sizable at almost 39,000 crore rupees. Now, the results were quite dramatic. India is now the world's second largest mobile phone manufacturer. The government even estimates that mobile phone production is likely to grow from $30 billion in FY21 to over $130 billion by FY26. In fact, April to June period of 2022 alone saw production of 1.67 lakh crore rupees of phones, which includes exports of over 65,000 crore rupees. Now, a lot of these are very large numbers that we're discussing. However, they are attributable in large part to changes in the supply chain of one single company, that's Cupertino, California-based Apple. Since 2017, Apple has asked 3 Taiwanese contract manufacturers to move to India. That includes Wistron, Foxconn, and Pegatron. But why is Apple now looking at India to begin with? Well, there seems to be a growing realization by Tim Cook and Company that there's heavy dependence on one single geography, and that's China. Recent disturbances in production, courtesy of the zero-COVID policy and the geopolitical tensions, have only strengthened this view. Apple, meanwhile, is increasingly seeking to diversify its manufacturing base to de-risk the supply chain and to make it more resilient. Here, India has been a strong performer. Incentives under PLI have strengthened India's hand. Moreover, the robust production in India, despite 2 waves of COVID, has impressed the iPhone maker. Moreover, Apple is likely to sell over 7 million units in India alone in 2022. But as 2022 draws to a close, these figures are only set to grow from here. FY21, meanwhile, saw exports of 11,000 crore rupees, that's iPhone exports, but April to December period for 2022 alone is likely to see exports of 20,000 crore rupees. Now, looking ahead at 2023 and beyond, Apple is likely to triple its production in India in the next 3 years. In fact, a JP Morgan report estimates that by the end of 2022, Apple would have shifted 5% of iPhone 14 manufacturing to India. As per this report, in fact, Apple will continue to move supply chains to India, and by 2025, 25% of all Apple products will carry the Made in India badge. Now, these estimates are being backed by Taiwan-based contract manufacturers, increasing their exposure to India. Take Foxconn, for example. It has already committed an additional $500 million for expanding production in India. It has also planned to increase its manufacturing, in fact, by increasing the manpower by 4 times to meet the production needs. So what does this mean? Well, to begin with, expect Apple to nudge its contract manufacturers to expand the current facilities and to scale up production. Also expect the contract manufacturers to rope in skilled labor to align with the production cycle of Apple's requirements. And finally, the large engineering pool that India boasts of may also see design, innovation, and R&D functions move to India. But industry watchers do raise a few concerns. Here's number 1. The heavy dependence on China is likely to continue for the foreseeable future, as India still does not manufacture several key components. Second, the value addition that is done in China for smartphones is generally low. In fact, currently it is limited to only about 14%. Number 3, Apple has 120 suppliers for its products. From them, only 12 currently manufacture in the country. And lastly, the timeline for releasing incentives to manufacturing is in fact running behind the curve. So far, only about 460 crore rupees of incentives have been released, with the likes of Samsung still awaiting clarity on their dues. So clearly, Apple for now is betting big on India, but with stiff competition from countries like Vietnam, India will have to stay on its toes to tango with Apple.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ashmit, for that. Pretty impressive, jumping in and out of the cell phone over there. But let's take a quick break on that note. On the other side, more news, more market updates coming up on the last trading session of 2022. Stay with us.
கண்ணை